In the holy city of Atlanta, on this day, a girl came out to show herself to the crowd, who was the Saint Beatrice Combal. People loved her and admired her, believing that she was the one who would save the empire. They believed that she would prevent misfortune on her land and also revive the empire, Kyrix. The emperor ordered that he would appoint the saint as the crown princess, and the Duchy of Combal tried very hard to make her the perfect girl who would be worthy of the throne. But no one had actually seen her use the holy power, and this worried people. But nevertheless, she was under the protection of the temple, which meant that there must be another reason why she was not using the holy power, and they could only believe in her. The empire had an oracle whose words were passed down from the moment of its foundation. A saint will appear who will revive the empire and in the future save everyone from disaster by his or her power. This was the message of the oracle. But even if the heroine is chosen, she still cannot use the holy power, and the father, in order to keep this secret, using the influence of the high priest, locked her up in the temple of Atlanta. And if it is realized that she cannot use holy powers, then everyone will turn away from her, and so she must try to be a perfect saint. She said that if she becomes like that, then the holy powers will be able to flourish. Later, a servant of the church approached the saint and suggested that she go and rest, since she had been praying late yesterday. And in a moment, another woman came to tell her that the heroine had received a letter sent by the Duke of Combal. This news surprised her greatly. It was the first time she had received a letter from her father, the first letter in 10 years, and it said that he had a very important matter. He had already talked to the first priest, and therefore she should immediately come back to the duchy. Not intentionally, but the heroine said that her father finally recognized her, and 2 maids heard this, and they were sincerely happy for the heroine, as she missed her home very much, and the girl blushed, assuring that this was not true, and the maids just laughed at this, as they had never seen the saint like this before. The maid met her as soon as she got off the carriage and told her that her father was waiting for her in the garden. She felt uneasy going there, perhaps not expecting much hospitality, but it was surprisingly quiet. As she got closer, she heard a strange laugh, and in a moment, she saw her father and brother playing with a girl, and this behavior confused the heroine. She had never seen her father laugh like that. He was usually very strict with anyone, and he didn't even show his joyful appearance to her. But now he seemed happy, and this girl, who was a stranger to her. As soon as they made eye contact, the little girl, shouting how happy she was to see her sister, ran to her. But when they were almost face to face, the heroine saw a strange smile, and the girl fell down, right behind her. The men immediately ran to the fallen child, ignoring Beatrice, and in a moment began to accuse her of abusing the child. And that was all she could do when she returned after 10 years. The heroine tried to justify herself, saying that she did not intend to knock her down, but no one wanted to listen to her, claiming that someone like her had never done anything right, and it seems that this behavior was the reason she was kicked out of the temple. The father was interrupted by his brother, who assured him that it seemed as if heroine did not know yet, which was suspicious, since the saint held the highest position in the church, but she still did not know about the news that spoke for her. At that moment, the girl spoke up, assuring her that there was nothing strange about it. Her sister must have been so excited about the trip that she missed all the important news, after which a white ball suddenly appeared in her hands, and her entire dress, which was smeared with mud because she had fallen, became clean in an instant. After that, her father said that this was a holy power, one that she could not master even if she tried all her life, and the oracle flower bloomed again. The flower of the oracle. This secret flower chose the saints of the empire. It chose Beatrice as a saint 10 years ago, but after 10 years, the old flower bloomed again. The temple took it as the appearance of the true one, the new saint determined by God, a girl with black hair and red eyes. And this meant that the heroine was no longer a saint. She was now Lena Combal. And this shocked her. She couldn't believe her ears, not understanding how this was possible. The flower couldn't bloom again, and she was no longer a saint. And what about the 10 years she had devoted to Atlanta? And now they were talking about this girl. After hearing the news, the girl added that from now on, she is also a member of the Combal family, and her father said that she is a precious child and therefore should be treated well. What the heroine felt from the girl, she was surprised that it could be a holy force. She felt a very evil energy from her at that moment, but for some reason everyone believed her words so much. Suddenly Lena started crying, saying that it seemed that the heroine did not want to have a younger sister, since she, such a disgusting orphan, would become her sister, and it was understandable why she was not happy. But nevertheless, it was too much to do this because of the crown prince. As soon as the girl asked what she was talking about, her father interrupted, ordering her to stop, since the princess's place belonged to a saint from the very beginning, and it is clear why they decided to break the marriage agreement. 10 years ago, in the imperial palace, there was a conversation between the heroine and the prince, where she said that from now on, she would have to live in Atlanta, and now he would have to do without her, but she would be there to pray for him every day. And then they promised each other that one day she would return to him. But now everything was going beyond. The girl did not understand how it could happen. The oracle flower had blossomed, and the marriage was dissolved, so tomorrow morning she would have to check everything. Suddenly, a small ram dragged by a maid caught her eye, and she asked what she was doing, to which the maid assured her that it was decided to cook a young ram as a healthy meal for Miss Lena. The girl was very surprised by this information, as it was not allowed to do in any case. The priest had already told her that eating meat for a saint was taboo, as it could cause disaster even faster, and if she really was a saint, she was not allowed to eat meat, and so the girl decided to tell her. When she entered the room, she noticed a girl cutting a flower with scissors, and so she said that she could not cut flower branches with scissors during the holidays. The maids were preparing for the ceremony, and at such a time one should be especially careful, and she was also told that the girl was being given meat to eat. The girl asked if the heroine was treating her so disrespectfully only because she was older, after which her expression changed dramatically, and in an angry voice, she said that if the girl was excluded from the saints, she was like a dead person, and now she dared to teach her. In desperation, the heroine denied everything, assuring that trouble would come if the saint broke the taboo, and then people would suffer. And at that moment the saint smiled arrogantly, ordering her to stay out of this business, and she remembered everything, and even knew what trouble would happen in Atlanta. The girl continued that even if she knew everything, she had to think about the believers. These words finally made the girl angry, and she said that Beatrice was no longer the main character. She started shouting that a nobody like Beatrice was nothing, and therefore she shouldn't be standing in her way, and if she was just a human being, then let her know her place, and she would continue to do as she planned, at which point she picked up a pair of scissors in a fit of anger and stabbed her. At that moment, my father came running to check what was going on, and what he saw terrified him. Lena was sitting with her arm injured, asking her sister what it was all about, and then she fell down. At that moment, her father rushed to her, ordering the servants to call a doctor, and the heroine stood there all this time, frightened, unable to even move, and in a moment, her father blamed her for everything that happened. The girl assured in tears that she had done nothing, but no one was listening to her anymore, and the man claimed that she had been taken away from her place as a saint, and even her fiancé, and that was why she had gone crazy. He had no idea that she was so crazy. He was a fool to believe in her and spend money on the temple, and now to call her a member of the Combel family was only a disgrace. Her childhood, the only memories of it, are how she went out of her way to get the love of her beloved father. On that day, she remembered how the knights quarreled with each other for not stopping the Duke from climbing the mountain to save one knight. And after he returned with the wounded knight, everyone was delighted with his feat. And at that moment, his daughter was there, who was sincerely rejoicing with everyone else, and when she saw him, she rushed to hug him. But the man only looked at her with disgust and asked who brought her here, because today she had to have a lesson, and the Duchess of Combel cannot be inferior, so she must grow into a person who will help the family in the future. One of the knights said that the little lady said she wanted to meet her father today, and he ordered her to tell him that he was sorry to waste even 1 second on a useless child. At that moment she was woken up, claiming that they were already on their way to the outskirts of the city, that before she was chosen as a saint, she was already an unwanted child for her father. She had tried to die, and she barely managed to live up to her father's standards, but in the end she was unable to use the holy power. Her thoughts were interrupted by a guy who said that he was glad that she was able to return to the city unharmed, as he was very worried about her. The guy himself was the commander of the Holy Knights of the Atlanta Temple, Balt Coble. The girl was very happy to see him, and the first thing she asked was how things were going in the church and with the believers, to which the captain only said that everything was fine in the church. But now he did not know what to say, and therefore apologized. The heroine convinced him that she already knew that the flower had bloomed again, and that she was forbidden to enter the temple. But she was nevertheless eager to learn the news, and was glad that he had come. The guy bowed, saying that he knew that the true saint of Atlanta was Saint Beatrice, and he did not believe that she was a fake saint. But the girl said that he should have heard rumors that she could not use her powers. The captain said that since we were talking about it, he had suspicions that the new saint was connected with black magic, even when it was still holy. Even then there were people who claimed to have holy powers, but it turned out that they were all black magicians. After that, he handed her a letter stating that before everything began, a dead crow should be placed on the altar, and then 6 pentagrams should be drawn with the blood of a lamb, and then a child should be killed and offered to the gods. What she read horrified the heroine, as she already realized that these were materials for witchcraft and a way to close the magic circle, and the guy claimed that Saint Lena had secretly passed these instructions to some believers. After a moment, the captain said in a loud tone that it was all about using black magic, and the true Saint Beatrice had to stop it, and to do so, he had to convince them not to follow the sorceress's orders while writing a new letter. The guy assured her that they would definitely believe her, because she had worked so hard for Atlanta, and all the 10 years she had sacrificed for the sake of the believers had not been in vain. The girl heard these words and cried, assuring that she was really grateful that there are people who know about these 10 years. Balt said that Lena's ceremony will take place in a few days, and until then, he asked her to stay in Atlanta, and if she protects everyone, he will feel more comfortable, and together they will protect the believers. The day of the ceremony came, and the saint entered the hall, where everyone present was delighted to see the one they had chosen, and although her face was not visible, the true saint was very gorgeous. She was asked to come to the altar, and at that moment knights burst in, ordering her to catch the fake, accusing her of conspiring to kill the saint and using black magic to kill people. Taking off her veil, they saw Beatrice in front of them, claiming that they already had proof. And behind them appeared the captain, along with Lena, who had recently said that there was a disaster, and a black witch tomorrow was going to use black magic. It was too late to complain to the guards, as the black magic had already been activated, and even if he complained it would be too late. And if he stepped on the altar, everything would be activated, so he would use the time to look for evidence. But since they are confronted by a saint who has a ceremony tomorrow, they are unlikely to be believed, and so they needed to prevent the use of this magic, and so he will give her medicine beforehand to put her to sleep. And at that moment, Beatrice must go to the altar instead of her, and during this time he will stop the magic. Now the heroine was in despair, as she could not believe that Balt had betrayed her, and he pointed to her, claimed that Beatrice Combel was a black sorceress, and in order to sacrifice those present at the ceremony, stole the holy Lena before, tried to perform the ceremony instead. She turned to the traitor, asking what he was saying, since he had recently asked for help. But he denied everything, and took out a letter, asking how she could explain it. It was the same letter that she personally wrote to counteract Lena's black magic, and someone skillfully added a few sentences on top of hers. The captain assured that in this document, there was evidence that Beatrice was using black magic. She was trying to satisfy her personal interest, sacrificed Atlanta, and even killed the Saint Lena. At that moment, she showed everyone her hand, with a recent scar. The heroine was desperate, begging them not to believe it, and she was not a witch. But no one believed it anymore. People said she was cornered, and so she began to justify herself. She was a witch as she ordered to kill Saint Lena. She was also accused of sending a secret letter to the believers who were following her and of planning to sink the Atlanta as well. And so now she had to answer for her sin, and for this she was sentenced to death. The girl was brought to a cliff in front of the sea, and the people called for her execution and immediate sending to hell. Even stones started flying in her direction, a little boy in tears, claiming that she had been deceiving them all along. She had sacrificed 10 years for them, and they dared to say that she was going to kill them. But it was the other way around. She wanted to save everyone, and now she was praying that someone would believe her words. In the crowd, she saw her, the one who had taken everything from her, her fiancé, her family, and even 10 years of her life. How could she do that? As if the whole world was prepared for her. Before the execution, the new saint asked them to give her some time to repent, and they let her go, warning her of the danger. And as they came closer, her angelic face immediately turned into a monster's smile. Publicly, she claimed that she should not have gotten involved with black magic, and after a moment she asked if she still suspected her and thought the girl was a witch, and she quietly said that it was all true. With a devilish smile, she assured me that nothing could be done anyway, and that's why the heroine would die, and then her whole family would also share her fate. It would not end with the execution of just one person who practiced black magic. As she got closer, the witch said that she would kill her, her entire family, and all her followers, and that this was the only way she could become the main character. And then she addressed the crowd, assuring them that her sister did not want to repent, so they had to hurry and execute her. She did not want to die like that, because if she died, their families would die. If she had made a different choice, she might have been able to save them all, to look good to everyone, and not to disappoint them. When she fell into the water, she regretted only the past, when she was very kind, and finally thought that if she was given another chance for a new life, she would not be a good person. The heroine will not give up on this, even if people point fingers at her because of her bad deeds. For the sake of fulfilling her goal, she is not ready for everything, even if she has to become a thief. Suddenly, she woke up screaming in bed. She did not understand what was happening. She was alive now. She was in her room, and remembering the words that her family would also die, she immediately went to her family. She was stopped by a maid who asked her what was wrong, and the heroine stopped, looking at her hands. She realized that she was in her childhood and decided that it was a dream, remembering that there can be no dream after death. The maid wanted to call a doctor, but in response, she only heard questions about what year it was and how old the girl was. So she said that it was 1110, and the heroine was 10 years old. Hearing this, the girl immediately began to ask the maid in a panic what she was doing here, what was going on with Atlanta, and what her father had said. But the woman did not understand the question and asked why she needed to know about the place where the first priest was. When the girl saw the letter from the maid, she took it away, and it came from the academy where her brother was now, and it said that the spring semester was over, and in this case, the heroine realized that it was spring. It was winter when the oracle became known, and then it still meant that the oracle had not yet descended. The heroine began to worry, as it meant that nothing had changed. In the winter, when she was 10 years old, the oracle flower bloomed, and she chose a girl to be a saint. But she could not use the holy power. She believed that if she had this power, she could get her father's love. But the priest taught her that if she was perfect, she could get the holy power. An ideal saint, loyal to the temple and its followers, she would become a sacrificer. Honesty, sincerity, care, kindness. She considered this more important than her own life. She thought that if she followed all this, she would become an ideal saint and would gain power, and thus receive the love of her father. But why all this empty effort now? It was all killed. She was back 10 years ago, in a body that had not yet received the oracle. At the moment, she had no idea how this could happen. But the heroine was sure of one thing for sure. There was something she had to do first. It is to find Lena. Once the heroine can find this child, she will be able to prevent what is about to happen in the past, but what she could now do in the body of a child. The maid who dressed the girl said that she was very cute, and there was no one who would fit the princess's shoes but her, and Prince Kale would definitely fall in love with her. Beatrice has been friends with the crown prince of Kale since childhood. She became friends with the child, not knowing what a great person he really is. Her father found advantage in this, and decided to prepare her for the role of a bride for the prince. And to meet her father's expectations, she did her best. At that moment, a woman entered the room, angry that the lady had not yet finished her preparations. She would become the crown princess anyway, But the woman accused the girl of being obsessed with her outfit even today. Grabbing her arm, the woman said they were going to school. Otherwise, she would make Herzog angry again. This woman was her nanny, and she would complain to her father at a better opportunity. Turning to her father, the girl claimed that the nanny had spoiled her favorite book, and that's why she told only the butler about it. And her father said that looking at that book would not improve her grades, and by doing so, she would not be able to become a crown princess. The man claimed that he had heard that she had bad grades in this exam as well, and therefore, until she proved her worth, she was forbidden to read other books. After that, the girl was given bad food, and the servants could only feel sorry for her among themselves. But they could not do anything about it, as it was the nanny's order, and if they disobeyed, they would be kicked out. And now she was determined that she would never return to those days, so she broke free from the nanny's grasp, and she asked in amazement what all this was about, and then turned to shouting and accused her of being such a lazy princess. After that, she heard an angry voice in response, asking who she dared to raise her hand at. The girl claimed that the nanny was thinking of hitting her, and in a moment the woman realized that the girl was rebelling against her. She used to be afraid even when they just pretended to raise their hand, but now she was strange. After that, the woman said that she was the nanny of the Combel family and was responsible for her education, to which the girl said that she did not need such an education, especially from a person like her. The nanny only said arrogantly that until yesterday the girl was ashamed of her grades, and it seems that she did not realize that she was lagging behind in many ways, after which the heroine coldly said that if she proved that she no longer needed the nanny, what would she do then? Perhaps kneel before her. These words angered the woman, but she accepted the offer that if the girl could prove that she no longer needed a nanny, she would not be involved in her education, but if not, she should be prepared for punishment. The heroine smiled, realizing that first she had to get rid of all the people who were standing in her way, and so she assured them that whether it was corporal punishment or solitary confinement, they could do whatever they wanted. But still, it was not enough for the girl that the nanny would stop being involved in her education. The duchy was suffering losses due to unnecessary staff, and so she would prove by any means that this woman was no longer needed here, and she would leave. Later, the father was told that his daughter was going to fire the nanny, as there was no use in education, and he was skeptical, as he understood how much the princess needed education. She felt like she didn't need it anymore, so she said she would call a tutor and prove it, and these words interested the Duke, as he decided that the girl finally wanted to become a crown princess, and so he decided to go and check it out himself. As he approached the room, the man heard the girl's praise. The tutor was shocked at how she could learn in such a short time, calling the girl a genius, as she was only 10 years old and incredibly smart for her age. The tutor said that with such abilities, she would definitely become a great scientist, and as soon as he was about to tell the Duke the news, she said that there was no need for that yet, and therefore he could be free now. After that, she turned to the nanny, reminding her that she herself had said that she did not need her to teach her, and in everything else too, and that she should leave her now. The woman was angry, claiming that the Duke had entrusted her with the child's education, but she intended to throw her out so easily, and so the nanny threatened to complain to him. The girl just laughed at these words, not understanding how she could be afraid of such a pitiful person. And so she claimed that Nanny was very wrong about her silence, sincerely wondering why she had endured so much up to now. In the end, the heroine stated that if the nanny hadn't mentioned that she was assigned to teach the girl, she wasn't someone with whom the woman could communicate at will. These words threw the woman into a stupor. She was desperate because of her powerlessness in this situation, and she could not understand how someone who could not get the Duke's recognition behaved like this, how such a person could become a princess, a child who until yesterday had only cried, whether there was any point in being a person who cares about her people. The man said that the nanny was out of her mind and wanted to intervene, but the father stopped him, and the heroine decided to add fuel to the fire, asking if she really didn't like the fact that Beatrice was going to become a princess, and now she was behaving in a way that was completely unworthy. Now she was interested in the reason why the nanny was deceiving her father and tormenting her so miserably, at which point the woman came to a little bit of her senses and, reaching for the kettle, assured her that the girl was good at muttering to herself. A woman was approaching the heroine with a kettle in her hand, assuring her that the only thing to look at was the girl's face, and if she left a burn there, she would not be able to become a princess. The woman's expression was becoming more and more like a mad woman's, and she said that if she was kicked out of here, she had nowhere else to go anyway, and if a person's life is broken, he becomes determined. But she shouldn't have worried, because Herzog would not believe the girl's words anyway. The heroine began to realize that the woman had gone crazy. She still did not believe what the nanny was threatening her with. Otherwise, she would be sent to prison, and she meanwhile prepared to scald the girl with boiling water, ordering her not to speak to her so arrogantly. At this point, the man ordered her to stop, and when she saw them, she tried to get out of the situation by claiming that Miss refused to accept the training. But her father was angry, and so he asked the attendant what he did when he was disrespected, and so he ordered to bring boiling water and take her away. The woman begged them to let her go to the last, but no one was listening anymore, after which the father turned to Beatrice, claiming that he needed to talk, and so he asked her to leave. The exam she passed at the age of 10 was written perfectly, and it was not really difficult, because compared to the education she received throughout her childhood in the Herzog household, the education she received at Atlanti as a saint was even more difficult. But for the current heroine, who passed the exam with flying colors, tea with her father felt much harder. Could he now know that the 10-year-old her who was in the temple dreamed every day of returning home? She wanted to be loved. It seemed as if this was the goal of her life. Now he wanted to talk about the nanny's exile, namely to praise her, assuring her that she was not a child who would bow her head, but one who would become the princess of an entire country in the future. He never imagined that Beatrice would learn such a good lesson, and it seems that he had been neglecting her for a long time. People said that it was all the price of the effort, so if she wanted something, now he was ready to listen to her. These words stuck in her head, and so she decided to say it one last time, to say that she didn't want to be a princess, and she wanted to live her own life, and so she said out loud what she thought, adding that she wanted to choose her own future. A moment of silence followed, and the heroine was glad that she was finally able to say it. But she didn't know if her father would listen to her anymore. But if everything was fine, she could live with her father as a friend. The man did not show the reaction she had been waiting for, saying that because of the light praise she had lost her mind, and her value was only in becoming a princess and thus raising their family. And if she could not do that, what else? The heroine's speculations turned out to be true. He thought of her only as a tool. Nothing can be done now, as she is still too young and has no strength, and therefore until she becomes an adult, she needs the title of Duke Combel. And so she admitted that she was wrong, claiming that she was not herself for a while. Beatrice agreed that becoming a princess would raise their family in society, and that was the only thing she could do. And in this case, she asked for the key to the secret vault, arguing that in order to become a crown princess, it would be a good idea to try to use a large amount of money. The man accepted this, ordering Gaston to do so, and then said that he had to leave the house for a couple of days, so she had to behave, and after receiving her consent, he left. The heroine is now ready to do whatever her father says. If he says to become a princess, she is ready. If he says to be a saint, she will accept it. But in return, she will take advantage of all the privileges of a princess and leave. So it's time to start doing this right now. Walking down the corridor, the girl asked the man how much capital she could use, and he laughed lightly and assured her that since she was still very young, she could tell him anything she wanted and he would buy it. The heroine looked down on him, thinking he thought she was going to steal everything from the safe to bathe in luxury. But now she needed cash so clean that she wouldn't need to find out if it was real or not. Her father gave her the key to the vault and instructed her husband to deal with it, which meant that the entire amount she could spend depended on this person. And so she began to evaluate him. He had calluses on his hands and a strong body and a penetrating look, and this told her that although this man was accompanying her, he had been a knight in the past. She knew this look because of the people who came to the church who once held this position, who had survived the terrible war, the knights who survived the battle, but who did not live for themselves, who were constantly looking for a place to lean on and something to hope for. The girl said that for the knights who returned from the war, in the arms of God, She wanted to make a donation in the church, and because the Duke did not participate in the war, she heard that the war was a horrible, shudder-inducing war, and so at least she would like to do this to honor their souls. Since her father did not make a donation to the church, she wanted to do it in secret, and these words impressed the old soldier. Such a young girl was worried about such a thing. The Duke really did not trust the church, and it turned out that even being so young, she was thinking sensibly. To her husband, she looked like an angel now, and if the saint really existed, she would have said the same. And so he assured her that he would prepare everything necessary, and handing her the key, he said that he hoped she would fulfill her plans. After that, she just smiled viciously. She planned to give the money not to the temple, but to a criminal guild, and even if she had donated the money to the temple, it is unlikely that the money would have been used in the necessary way. During the period of her life as a saint, she was forced to live a righteous life, and the first priest who became the cause of this was the most lustful person in the temple, and at that time, knowing all this, she followed him as if he were a fool, and therefore it would be better if she used them herself. It wasn't as easy as she had hoped, and the maid kept asking her not to go anywhere, arguing that it was too dangerous for a little girl. The heroine was going to buy information about Lena from the guild, but Kitty caught her. Still, she expected something like this. It was impossible to go away alone at the age of 10, and maybe the girl could get out if there was a person nearby to protect her. But the maid asked what happened if the lady left so suddenly. The rumor that the lady had suddenly changed was on everyone's lips, and if you think about it, the lady was very surprised when she looked at her brother's letter, read the letter, and was surprised, looked out the window at the street, and was surprised again, and so she was sure that something had happened. She asked him not to be too sad, as young Mr. David has a lot of things to do at the academy, and so he is busy, and he also misses home. The woman decided that the girl was lonely because of her brother, David Campbell, her brother. Because he had been at the academy since childhood, they hardly saw each other, and if you look at his behavior in his 20s, it seemed that he also liked Lena. The heroine asked why her brother did not return, and was told that it was all about her grades, and the girl realized that this time she would not be able to get along with her brother. Suddenly they saw a carriage through the window, but they didn't know who it was because they hadn't said anything about guests, and it was strange, so the woman went to see who the guests were. Left alone, the girl was thinking about her brother, whether he remembered her birthday and the gift he had given her, when she heard screams coming from downstairs, and it scared her. At that moment, a puzzled maid appeared, assuring me that guests from the academy had arrived, and it would be better if she went out to them, but she was not going to explain, only asked me to hurry. And at that moment, the guests turned to her, asking where she was going to run off to, after which they asked if she was Beatrice, who despised and ignored David, the arrogant upstart. They continued to accuse her of still ignoring her brother, and however much she hoped for her father, where it was seen to ignore her own brother, and however it was, this girl is a child of no importance. The heroine was confused by these words and did not understand what they were talking about. They thought that she was using her father's power and disrespecting her brother, and yet the heroine assured that she had never ignored her brother. But no one believed her, continuing to shout that the gifts he sent every year on her birthday all returned to the academy. And then the girl realized that she had never received anything but a necklace. At this moment, one of the servants who was nearby got scared, and the girl began to realize that all the letters that came to her were controlled by the nanny. She was kicked out, and the person who was supposed to send the letters also disappeared. And that's why these people came here. She always thought it was stupid to ignore her brother. And then she turned to Kitty, assuring her that if the nanny was kicked out, she should have given the letters to her. And if you think about it, she never got the letter she saw on the first day. The accusations didn't end there. Every year there was an event, inviting relatives of students, where they could show their results. And no matter how bad the relationship was, even then the relatives always came. David sent her invitations for 3 years, but she refused every time. He was always alone. They did everything they could to make him happy, but no matter what, he always stood by his sister's side, and now they were not going to tolerate it, so they would accept the apology instead of David. And then Beatrice realized the true purpose of their visit. These people sincerely cared about him. They were worried about their brother who could not even complain about her. Their actions were against etiquette, but they did not seem to do it out of malice. And since it was her fault, she decided to apologize and thus let the situation go. The girl agreed and asked how best she could apologize, and one of the defenders said that he hoped for an apology, as it was customary for the aristocracy to fall down and kiss the floor. A few seconds after realizing what they were demanding, a terrible rage arose in the heroine, no matter what they did for her brother, how they dared to say such an insolence to her, the Duke's daughter. Recalling the past, she realized one important thing. The better you treat people, the more inhuman they become. And this was no exception. The heroine realized that you can't treat everyone with kindness, and you need to teach these fools a lesson. Suddenly, a voice was heard saying that the owner of Combal would not bow her head to anyone, even if it was the emperor. And at that moment her brother appeared, shocking everyone present. The angry guy asked who allowed them to come to this house, as he did not remember giving anyone an invitation, and at the same moment he was told that they had come here instead of him to apologize because they were worried. To which they received a sharp answer that he himself had never wanted it. So why did they do it on their own accord? But they did not understand how such a worthy child like him could be neglected and protected by such a talentless child. After that, David ordered not to throw words around so unceremoniously, as he had heard that Beatrice in her younger years was very intelligent and sincere, as her father's recognition had been received, and therefore she would become an even more prominent Combal than he was. Listening to all this, the girl realized that all this time he had thought so. But he was wrong, because there was no such thing as her father recognizing her at least once. Perhaps he was lonely before her execution, but now she would try to fix it. The boy continued to shout at these people, after which he said that he had decided what to do. He would pull out all his hair so that none of it would remain. At this point, his sister interrupted him, gently assuring him that it was all for his sake, and that he should not act so cruelly to his friends, and that she herself was already fine. He took one of them and rejected him, ordering him not to appear in front of him until he said so, after which the boy apologized to his sister for causing them trouble. A moment later, she saw a servant who was about to leave her in a hurry, and the girl stopped him, saying that he should know why the gifts and letters from her brother had disappeared. The man was very worried, and so he insecurely assured that he was only doing what he was told, and the nanny told him to send back all the gifts. The heroine's predictions came true. It was indeed that woman, and so she ordered him to return every single one. The servant told him that he had already sent everything away, and there was no way to return, and he had already sold some things, and after saying that he tried to escape again, but this time he failed. This time, her voice was very angry, even violent, and she claimed that he had dared to throw away her things and was now just going to leave. So by any means he would find everything, even if he started stealing, even if he used his own money, he had to return everything. After these words, he ran away in terror, assuring her that he understood everything. Left alone, the heroine realized that although she had ordered to look for gifts, it would be too late. In fact, before she could arrange a misunderstanding and regain her brother's trust, she wanted to heal the wound he had received because of the nanny's mean actions. And in a moment, when she saw the necklace, she realized that it was the key to their relationship. Her brother said he would stay at the manor until her father returned, and so the servants began preparations immediately, because of the unforeseen situation. And now she was looking for him, wanting to talk to him. He said he would be in the training room, and so the girl was heading there. When she saw him, she was surprised that her brother had been interested in fencing all this time. He had all the necessary skills, but for some reason she did not know about it, and decided that it would be better not to distract him now. So the girl decided to come up later, but it seems that he heard that someone was there, and so he ordered to show himself, and when he saw his sister, he lowered his sword in shame, and the heroine saw the sword falling and decided to catch it, but the guy did not let her do it, and as a result, they both ended up on the ground. The guy was still emotional, saying that she could have been hurt if she had taken the sword with both hands. But there was no need to apologize, as he was just afraid for her, and now he was going to leave, asking her not to go to such places alone anymore. The heroine asked him to wait, to be honest. By showing him this necklace, she wanted to say that she hadn't forgotten her brother. But now she didn't know whether he was already disappointed in her or not, and so she apologized for interrupting the training, saying that she shouldn't have come here. Her brother denied this, saying that his sword was a trifle, and in any case, no one would appreciate his abilities now, so it was no problem that she prevented such useless training. It all looked very strange to her, as she did not remember him as such an insecure person, and so she assured him that for someone who knew nothing, it all looked great. But he objected to her even here, saying that such skills were of no use to their family, and she was the one who could do much more. Her father said that if you compare them, David's skills are just pathetic. Beatrice could not believe her ears, as her father had assured her that she was not worth her brother's little finger, and so now she decided to say everything she thought. The girl hugged him, saying that all her father's words were lies. He told her that of all the heirs of past generations, her brother was the most outstanding. The boy did not believe that his father could say something like that, but after a moment, he noticed the necklace that the girl was wearing all the time, and she explained that it was something he had given her for her birthday, all in the hope that he would believe in her sincerity. The brother turned away and said that he thought she had thrown it away, but it turned out that the girl still had the gift, and she decided not to waste the moment and said that it was her brother's gift, and she could not throw it away. Hearing these words, the boy smiled and thanked her for it, a reaction that surprised the girl a bit, as he had never shown his emotions before, and she thought it would be unusual for him, but now he seemed to be a rather warm person. The day passed quietly, and at night there was still something that did not leave her alone, namely why her father had lowered her brother's self-confidence, and if he continued to do so, things would only get worse, so she needed to restore his faith in himself. She found him in the yard, where he was continuing his training, and he assured her that he could do nothing but that. The girl was touched by these words, and realizing the extent of the boy's insecurity, she supported him here, assuring him that he would definitely become the best knight. He seemed to be ashamed to receive praise, so she promised herself that if she just waited a little longer, she would make his confidence pour over the top. After that, the heroine praised her brother as much as she could, and before that she could not imagine that he would change so much. And then she decided that she had to go out today, and if she did, she would tell Kitty that she would be at home all day, and she would quickly run away. But her brother got in her way, like a dog asking to go for a walk with her. And there was a side effect. Of course, it was good that he became more confident. But because of this, she couldn't go out unnoticed. But still, she was determined, and even had a good idea. The girl said that she was busy today, so she couldn't make it. And to her surprise, her brother was very upset, asking if she was bored with him already. But she convinced him that it was not that. It was just that she had an important thing to do today. The heroine stopped him when he was about to leave and said that there was still a way, so she asked him to listen to her request, after which she whispered her request to him. He wanted to refuse at first, but the girl asked so much that he had no choice. Later, when the heroine was getting dressed, she was again visited by an excited maid who asked her not to go anywhere, as it was dangerous, and she should at least take a guard. But in a moment, her brother appeared and assured her that she was going with him, and no guard was needed. At that time, my brother was already 15 years old, and he was now at an age where he could go off on his own, and no matter how you slice it, Kitty wouldn't be able to say a word. So they went. Walking through the poor streets of the place, they met a suspicious man who asked how they got here, as it was not a place where children could get to. The brother immediately said in an angry voice that he should leave, but the girl said in a calm voice that she had come here to meet their head, and since this man was the leader of the guild, she asked to be taken to him. The man laughed nervously, marveling at the child's cuteness, after which he assured her that it was not so easy to meet the head, and at that moment a bag of gold flew at him, and the heroine asked if she could not meet him with such money. When she was still a saint, there was a time when black magicians were operating freely in the empire, and together with the priests, they were going to eradicate their remains. And after the investigation, they found out that one information guild was helping black magicians, and it was the Ion Guild. Their catch was a failure. At the time, she thought they were the center of all evil and needed to be punished. But now she was going to use them. And so they got to the meeting place. And before entering, the girl was determined to finally see Ivan Turpey's face. Upon entering his office, the guests were very surprised, as there were crosses and statues of saints all around. And it turned out that the owner was very devout. But then why did he help black magicians? A richly dressed man at the table greeted them, asking if they wanted to see him, and the girl confirmed it, adding that she had business with him. But the man assured them that it would be difficult, as he would not want to lose the lost lamb, because God would be angry. He also added that although their shelter was large, it was not big enough to take responsibility for the children, the Campbell family, and that is why he thought they could say goodbye. The girl was surprised, as he already knew who they were, even though she hadn't debuted yet. And yet she needed Ion now, because there would be no such capable guild in the future. She asked if her husband knew the contents of the oracle, and he confirmed it, adding that it was a prediction that had been passed down since the creation of the country, that a saint would appear. The heroine assured him that it was about her, and she would give him a chance to be devoted to God, after which he laughed, a terrible, hysterical laugh that ended with a threat that they should not even think of insulting his faith by saying such things now, because he is always sincere in his faith. She had no doubt that Ivan believed in God very fervently, a truth she learned later. But the reason she could not catch Ion was because of the high priest, who wanted to personally own the entire amount of money that Ion donated to the temple. She thought they were giving the money for a backup plan, but it seems she was wrong. He really does believe in God, and so it would be better if she revealed her identity directly. The heroine assured him that she was not going to offend his faith, to which he asked why he should believe in it, and the girl said that this winter an oracle would descend, a flower would bloom, and he would choose a saint, and if he pointed to someone else, he would be able to take her life. The head thought about it, and then said that people say that in the whole empire, there is no family that could outshine their armed power, and that the Duke himself, a man who literally went to his death, but survived and returned from the war a hero, there is no one who would surpass him. To try to touch a lady of this kind, just the idea of it, gave him goosebumps. But still, killing is different. The happiest moment in her life. When there are no threats or worries, he will wait for that time, because that is why all Ion's kills were successful. In any case, he asked if she could just as easily say the words, "Take my life," and she confirmed it. With a smile on her face, she assured him that the fact that she was a saint remained unchanged. The man laughed calmly at this, and if she had already decided so, he could do nothing else. So he came closer and asked her what errand she had for them. On the way back, my brother asked what the girl meant when she said she would become a saint. How could she tell such a lie, and that she would give her life? The heroine assured me that she would trust her brother to the end, so she did not hide it. But now is not the time when she could tell everything. But when the time comes, she will definitely tell everything. After that, she asked not to tell her father anything, assuring him that it was all for the sake of her brother. And at that moment the boy suddenly hastily covered her mouth. Together with her, he hid behind a house, and looked in the direction of one person, claiming that he was a high-ranking nobleman. This person was the Marquis of Ortan, and his appearance here aroused some suspicion. After that, David said that he thought they shouldn't be seen. So he reacted quickly, to which the heroine assured him that she was fine, although she was a little scared. They had no idea why someone like the Marquis would be here, and so the girl found herself thinking that she should ask Ivan to investigate the Marquis of Ortan. The man's name is Ivan Turp. He's the head of the Information Guild, and he said he's going to look for Lena before the oracle flower blooms, and if they find her, he promised to bring her to meet the heroine, and it seems he thinks he can get into the Duke's mansion without being noticed. He also said that he didn't need money, maybe because he had taken her life as collateral, and now everything was very confusing. But meanwhile, her brother assured her that she had already finished all her work and could rest all day. To become the Crown Prince's bride, she had to go to the villa where he was recovering from an illness, and in any case, she didn't have time to play with her brother now. The maid assured her that the prince said he would be coming a little later, after which she asked if she had been talking to the prince for a long time, and receiving an affirmative answer, The woman said that the boy was very fascinated by her, and as soon as he returned to the palace, he immediately called her. The heroine refuted this statement, saying that she did not like him that much, realizing that it was all because her father insisted on it, after which the maid shared that everyone now thinks of her as a future princess. Exhaling heavily, the girl said that all the nobles now think so, even though it was all thanks to her father. Noticing this reaction, the maid asked if the lady was uncomfortable being in this place. But that wasn't the point. She just didn't want to be a crown princess, and she didn't want to live as a doll controlled by her father. But she couldn't leave Kale as a childhood friend. At that moment, he came into the room, happily announcing that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. The girl saw him and couldn't believe her eyes, that this child could really be the same Kale she knew. At such a young age, he was very cute, and now he looked like a completely different person. When he greeted me, he suddenly coughed heavily, and the girl immediately helped him to his feet, assuring him that if he was not feeling well, he should have waited for her in the room. Since childhood, the prince had been in poor health, so much so that he had to stay alone in the villa, and knowing all this, the past, she still paid no attention to it. Now the boy assured her that he wanted to see her, even if only for a little while, and after these words, the girl was confused, and she could not believe how nice he was, and now he was completely different from the Kale she knew. It's not too late, and therefore she must raise him to be a good and kind child, so that what happened in the past does not happen again. Sitting at the same table, the heroine was teaching the boy, assuring him that he should never resist the Duke, and that he should never forget the man who cared so much about him, and the boy uncertainly agreed, saying that he would never forget it. As expected, the little prince was very obedient, after which she added that he should not listen to the Duke's words too much, and she meant the words about him marrying her, not to listen to them. This shocked the boy, and taking her hands, he asked why it was all so sudden, and if she had stopped liking him. The heroine immediately began to reassure him that it was not true, but that the wedding should be with a loved one, and whoever forced it, one cannot control it. Beatrice asked him if he didn't want to marry the person he loved, but she didn't hear an answer, and the boy became embarrassed and looked away. He was still silent, and she didn't understand why, despite her knowledge of children's feelings, it turned out that there was something she didn't know. And yet, the heroine was not the one he had married in the past. Yet he had married Lena. At that moment, it occurred to her that Lena could have been a saint from the beginning. A real saint would have used her powers, but for some reason, she was still using black magic. But now it didn't matter whether she was a real saint or not. The heroine had no desire to put her in the place of a saint, but she wanted Kale to be always happy and not to marry someone he would not love by force. In any case, she asked him to trust her, and if the boy followed her advice, he would definitely be able to marry the one he loved. The prince was happy about this, and in a moment he said that his friend was a little different today. She seemed more determined than before, at which point the heroine became quiet, realizing that the past and present her were completely different people. But now she was going to change even more, because only in this case she would be able to save everyone. At that moment, she took his wrist, with the intention of saying something, and he suddenly ouched, and lifting his sleeve, the girl was horrified, as it was covered with wounds. The frightened girl asked what it was all about, and the prince hesitantly refused to explain, assuring her that he could not tell her, and he could not tell his father anything, as he did not care about him, and if he saw his wounds, he would only get angry, so he asked to keep it a secret. She thought that Kale was a precious prince of the empire, living without any problems, but these wounds, she had no idea what could have happened to him. She didn't know that either. After that, she suddenly screamed, saying that he had said earlier that she had changed, and it was true, she had changed completely, and it was all for the sake of the people close to her, and that was why she intended to help him. And although he was weak in body, she assured him that she would find a way to cure this disease. She promised that no matter what happened, she would not leave him alone. And after thinking for a few seconds, the boy said that he believed her. Mentally, he decided that it would be better to listen, and then he would also be able to become stronger to protect the people he loved. But what to do? Hearing only the sound of that person's footsteps made him incredibly scared. While the servant was styling her hair, the heroine was still thinking about who could have done this to Kale. He hadn't told her until the last moment, and it seemed that he didn't fully trust her yet, and that made her feel a little bit hurt. A moment later, the maid said that the Duke's guests were coming today, which surprised the girl, and when she found out who was coming, she cringed in disgust. The heads of the Ortan and Alias families and their children were to come. It seemed like the worst possible time. The young guest greeted the girl, assuring her that she was as beautiful as ever, and the heroine thanked him, at which point the parents went to the Duke's room and ordered the children not to let the princess get sad. She assured her that she had brought a gift, and when she opened it, the heroine was horrified to realize that it was Chantilly, because on her birthday, the year before last, she had eaten a cake with Chantilly in it, and a big trouble had happened. The heroine realized with anger that it was she who had given Cornelia the chantry cake and now pretended in public to care about her. But as always, it was all a ruse, and if she rejected the gift, she planned to embarrass the girl in any way she could, since she knew that in front of her father, she could not move. But still, she would succumb to it in the same way, and so she asked Kitty to bring the tea she had recently talked about, and then suggested that Cornelia try it sooner rather than later. The heroine assured me that this tea was from a trusted supplier, and it had a unique flavor as well as a harmonious mouthfeel, and she had prepared it especially for her, so I had to try it as soon as possible. But by the expression on her face, it became clear that she was not going to drink a drop, apparently deciding that she was served low-grade tea, and perhaps the time had come to teach her a lesson, since she had always been rude to the girl. Cornelia defiantly turned away, then asked if it was authentic tea, as she had never seen this company before, and the color was strange, and the smell was like something rotten, and when she finished, she said she didn't want to try even a drop. After that, a girl named Shaya, who was nearby, said in tears that these words were too harsh, as this tea was imported by her family, and it was good for the body, and she had no allergic reaction to it. My father always said how difficult it was to transport it from the West. This tea was also named after her. He said he would add Shaya to the name, and it was the first time she was so offended, and so she bowed out. The heroine asked why the girl refused to drink this tea, after which Cornelia turned angrily at her, but she continued, offering to guess, because the reason was in her actions. Cornelia immediately began to absolve herself of guilt, claiming that she did not know what was going on, but the heroine asserted that she knew that the Duchess was allergic to Chantilly, and then, with a wicked smile, she added whether the guest really did not know the reason why she could not eat Chantilly, and if so, they would do something different. Beatrice said that she was grateful for this gift, and so it would be worth trying it to taste it, and that she knew that once people with allergies bite it, within 10 minutes, the airway swells and it becomes difficult to breathe, and if this happens, you need to take the antidote in 3 minutes. But now, it was just such a day when her doctor went on vacation, and a person with this allergy can die. But this has nothing to do with the unaware Cornelia, after which she defiantly took a bite with a fork, and the guest at the same moment asked her to stop. At that moment, the Duke was receiving guests, and addressing Gaston, he asked if he knew that the nanny had abused the princess, and he said that he had found out that day, and then received advice that he should have been more careful. These words shocked the man. It was the first time he had ever seen Herzog feel any feelings similar to regret. But in fact, he had left such a beautiful daughter, and it was strange that he never developed love for her. The man said that it was still possible to make things work, and so he offered to prepare gifts that the girls would like, to which he said that he was doing so. But for some reason, she did not like it. Gaston was horrified, realizing that those lavish dresses were to the man's taste, but the lady clearly did not like it, and so he said that he knew what the princess might like. After that, he whispered something in the Duke's ear, saying that the head of Combel was honored to have such a beautiful heart, and she said so, after which the father wondered if he knew anything about this child. At that moment, a servant came into the room, saying that there was a problem, and when he left the room, the father noticed that the girl was trying to bite the cake and immediately took it away, asking what she was doing. He was very angry and asked her if she wanted to die and therefore lost her mind. Cornelia's father also came out and went to his daughter, shouted questions about what was going on, and his daughter said that the princess scared her, and now she might faint. The man said that his daughter has a very weak heart, and if she falls, her life could be in danger. And so, addressing the Duke, he said that even though the princess is his daughter, he still cannot turn a blind eye to what happened. This situation was beginning to irritate Beatrice, and she decided that it would be better to apologize and end it all, although she wasn't very sure. But her father was here as well. The girl stood up and assured them that she hadn't played a good joke on Cornelia, and that if she had scared her, she was sorry. But the man interrupted her, saying that it wasn't a joke, and that his daughter had almost died because of it. So he demanded that they say something. This time, Herzog intervened, reminding him that his daughter had said it was all a joke, that it was all just childish fun, and that he should just forget about it. But if they don't forget, when he was about to explain the gift of a cake with Chantran from a member of the Orton family, the princess almost died from eating it, and it's no secret, and that meant he was really going to kill her. The Duke's voice became more and more angry, and the man looked at his daughter in fright, not realizing what she had done. And the Duke was already boiling with rage, although Gaston tried to calm him down. And after a moment, the head of the Orton family ordered his daughter to get up immediately, after which he lowered his and her heads. He apologized for the trouble he had caused, and they bowed, after which a voice could still be heard outside the door, claiming to have ordered her not to cause any trouble. Then it was time to ask Beatrice what had happened, and the father also asked why his daughter had been bullying her. And in his mind he already understood why this sudden rapprochement had looked suspicious to him from the beginning. Beatrice's friendship with his daughter was just a pretext. After that, he turned to Gaston, asked what hidden power the Marquis of Orton had, and let him tell him that he was not interested in it, and from that moment on, the Duke wanted nothing to do with him. He finished by telling his daughter that if she encountered something like this again, she shouldn't fight alone, but let him know, and promised that he would pull out the Marquise's fangs. The girl knew that if it were her from the past, she would have been scolded for causing a commotion. But now there was something strange that she was not used to, and so she wondered what could have happened. After Cornelia's visit, there were no incidents. It seemed that she was also spending time so calmly from the past, not knowing what the future would hold. And now, winter has come. The heroine was sitting by the window, thinking that she had been avoiding her father for 6 months. Sometimes she saw him coming to see her, but he didn't arrange meetings. He just thought that his daughter had become smarter, and perhaps he had different expectations than in the past. But even so, she has no desire to get closer to him, because she gave up this dream in the past, but she will still protect the family he values most, and it will also be safer for her. Suddenly, behind her back, someone noticed that the wind was quite strong, and she turned around and was shocked to see Ivan, the head of the Information Guild, standing in front of her, assuring her that they hadn't seen each other for a long time and that it was winter. The first thing the girl asked him was if he had already come here, had he found Lena, but she was denied. The man assured her that he had tried, but had not been able to find her. The heroine got angry, saying that they dare not call themselves an Information Guild if they had not been able to find one person by now, to which the chairman apologized and asked a sudden question whether such a child even existed. But the girl reminded him that she had already informed him that Lena was under the care of the church, and he asked if there was a possibility that she might be elsewhere. This could not be, and besides, a child with red eyes and black hair was not uncommon in the Empire, and despite the fact that he searched all the temples, there was no such child there. After that, the man started asking questions about whether Lena was just a pseudonym, whether there was a possibility that she had a family, and whether she had been living in the Empire since her birth. Beatrice could not give the necessary answers, as there was too little information about Lena, but still no one doubted her existence, after which Ivan asked why the saint would think that such a child exists at all.